Welcome back to Lupin the Third Anime Review, episode number 7. This will be the last 6 episodes of Lupin the Third Part 1. Yes, I'm finally wrapping up the series, and once I finish talking about the episodes, I'm going to get my final thoughts on Part 1 in the same video. Why do separate one? I can do the same thing here. Now, the first 2 episodes I actually watched last night. Excuse me. Okay, so in the case of the first episode here, we have it where that Lupin is discovered upon this beauty pageant, which reminds me a lot of the Miss America pageant. You know, with the women in bikinis, doing photo shoots, a little bit of talking. Actually, more like the Miss Universe competition mostly. So we have it where we have these various rich guys basically brought in to simply. Now, the guy running this competition is a notorious art thief. But here's the thing: he actually was arrested for stealing art, but he was released due to lack of evidence. Yes, seriously. They couldn't find the paintings, so he wants to sell his painting because he wants to retire in luxury. So Lupin trying to figure out a way to get to. They have him and his gang go undercover. We have Lupin undercover as the MC. We have both Fujiko and Jigen as the K people running the cameras. Gorman is not part of the TV crew. Not really, no. They bring him in like, oh, he just parachuted out of a freaking helicopter and just wrecked everything. And then we see on footage, because Jigen basically was right. I should point out, though, that those cameras basically are on cables. And based on how fast Jigen was running and how fast he was recording, that should not be possible at all. But it's a cartoon. What do you expect? Though it's anime. So, they do point out something quite interesting, though, that these particular suitcases being in the wardrobe room. It is quite interesting, though. We have the people in the competition in this very same hotel, the very same changing room as the ladies. That is a no-no. You should not do that at all. But apparently, that this is a good idea to do. So, they moved the final stage competition to this nearby island. So they had ships in there. Of course, Lupin, of course, disguised as a tea porter. Snakes on board, and of course we have where the inspectors. By the way, the inspectors actually in all these remaining episodes. I think the only episode he actually doesn't miss any episodes, which is quite shocking to say the least. Yes, it seems like the first half of the series he's not there very much. He's here for a handful of episodes, but apparently since like episode 13, he's here like every episode since then. I don't think he's missed one, which is kind of interesting for him. So they eventually find out, though, that the wardrobe suitcases are actually one containing paintings. So, and then, of course, Lupin kind of frames the guys like buy these things. They judge us like buy paintings. Yes, seriously. So they eventually sell on a price, and then of course, like they sell money, and then of course the inspector comes in and basically arrests all the rich guys in hilarious, over-the-top fashion for human trafficking. Not for stealing art, not for buying stolen artwork, human trafficking. He got him for that because the suitcase contained beautiful women inside. Yeah, as for how in the world Lupin basically... By the way, we have where Lupin he puts all of them in these suitcases. And some of them, I wonder how the heck he fit them in there. Well, given the fact these ladies are pretty thin anyway, so it was solving the problem. But how do they convince these ladies to get tied up and bound, not only bound, but also gagged as well? And so Lupin has the paintings on this boat that he steals from the inspector by sewing all the paintings into the sail. Wonder what happens to me in the Mona Lisa. I'm like, how the heck did he steal the Mona Lisa? It's one of the most well-guarded paintings in the entire freaking planet. And yet this art... Now, I get maybe he's stealing the art paintings. But the Mona Lisa, one of the most well-protected paintings in the entire world, is stolen by him. Why that one? That makes no freaking sense. But it was the only one I recognized. Out of all the paintings they showed off there, that was the only one I recognized. So... for our next episode is quite interesting. Lupin is framed for a series of crimes he supposedly committed But it turns these steps actually done by him, just done by an island full of the thieves. And they would get the thievery from basically reading from the book of Lupin the First. Yep, seriously. So the inspector's there, but he does this guy. Apparently, these thieves probably look like they're dirt poor. Apparently, they have electrolytes and stuff they stole. And of course, he finds out where the book is. Like, oh, it's in a shrine. So he steals it back. And outside the village itself, don't know. It's kind of weird to say the least. Mm-hmm. Yep. It is an interesting episode. I do like the mention of Lupin the First and the fact his thieving ways basically taught the whole village how to live, which is quite interesting to say the least. Yep. Now, in the case of the very next episode, we have it where Lupin is taking on the grandson of the guy who actually was the inspector who took on the original Lupin back in the early 1800s. Well, excuse me, the late 1800s, early 1900s. Yes, this is probably the very same inspector who fought the original back in the original book. Now, I gotta point this out. I've never read the original book, the original Lupin period. So, he basically apparently has the objects that are owned by the original Lupin. How is it that Lupin himself doesn't really own some of this stuff? Makes no sense. Though eventually he figures out a way to. He thinks so smart. And of course, then God says here too, because of course he is, because it's Lupin the Third. What do you expect? So, by the way, this French inspector calls his efforts laughably bad, where like there's so many failed arrests basically when it comes to arresting Lupin, and the way he's written all the rest of the episode, he is basically like just crazy. He just like he doesn't care about the air stuff. He doesn't care about small fry like Fujiko or Jugget. He really wants to arrest Lupin so badly. And that's his driving force a lot of the series. Yep. So, by the way, they used to do this stuff, and the guy is embarrassed. The guy himself has never seen anything in the series. It's a cool nod to the original novel to have the grandson of the inspector who actually fought the original Lupin in the original book. But not really much stuff there. It's a good Easter egg, people who actually are fans of the book in France. Yep. Now, in the case of the final 4 episodes of the series, actually that was 20 with the whole, let's see. 20 was the whole phony one. Yeah. So, as in the case of the last 3, excuse me. Now, in the case of episode 20, of these episodes, I think 20 is like the 3rd episode to not feature, of all things, Jigen, which is interesting because it seems as though he was absent about 3 episodes of the series. As far as I can tell, there's no reason for it. So, with this one, basically, he does appear in this one, Jigen, he does appear in this one. But it's been only Island of Thieves stuff, but he does appear in this one. So, basically, him and Lupin kidnap a girl named Ray from this very shady guy who's her uncle. Just take it back to her father, and of course she hates thieves and thinks her father is a very nice gentleman. And according to Lupin, who also there's a moment in the episode when she's like yelling at him, and he smacks her. Yes, he slaps her. Probably a scene that doesn't age very well at all. A guy slapping a woman. Well, I don't know. Now, from a minor perspective, that's a bad thing for Lupin to do. As far as I can tell, he's never hit Fujiko. Nope. He has never hit her. The whole time she's on the screen, she's constantly hit him, but he's never hit back. Well, mainly because he basically treats him very seriously. So we have this whole hilarious gag of basically her getting her to her father, like riding a train, running through like a forest. And then, of course, she's able to get past and of course, the inspector tries to stop Lupin by bringing the frickin' army in. Yes, the army, who brings a frickin' tank. And then, of course, the inspector chases Lupin while she reunites her father. A good half moment there. Very interesting episode this one is. So, in the case of 22, this is kind of a dumb episode. Okay, so let's have Lupin moves depicted by a computer. Yes, Inagasa himself points out that this whole thing is stupid. Lupin himself realizes it's stupid. And, like, apparently, mostly it seems like, though, that the plan according to the computer went to plan. Except Inagasa jumped the gun and get the Lupin before he could even step on the frickin' train. Because the thing is, the plan was for him to sabotage a signal, think it's red, rob the guys, and then basically rob the car filling with cash. Gordon's plan was basically have where, except that he actually had where the money and the guards swap cars. And when Lupin got in, they get arrested immediately. But apparently the guys they knocked down conscious apparently start making noise, so Gorman went back, and apparently they got jumped the gun. Excuse me. So the next time, basically Zenigasa gets Jigen and Gorman in the episode, and of course Transformers Cell, and of course they have where Lupin just poses Gordon. Most everything goes to plan, except something happens spontaneously. Gordon doesn't go to the truck per se, the trampoline truck. He goes straight to the cell, and it jumps out the window and basically jumps out. Doesn't jump out, basically flies away. So spontaneous. And by the way, Gordon just is never seen again. Yeah, the whole computer thing, basically predicting Lupin moves, it's an interesting idea, but it doesn't go anywhere. Nope. As the final episode series, it's like they mentioned about various other hideouts that Lupin had that explain why like every episode keeps swapping places. So basically the plan is to steal this gold that was randomly found by construction workers who were digging a tunnel. Yep, this old gold that the construction workers are fighting over. Lupin's like, I'll take it off their hands by stealing it. And of course, basically so they steal it by, having him drive his car. Well, actually you have Gorman digging a hole and having Fujiko and Jugen just be a distraction for some people. So Lupin himself basically drives the car into a tunnel that has a train. First he gets all the way to the first one. Second one he proceeds to have the car basically tip up and then come back down. Normal cars don't do this, by the way. They don't do this at all. And he's either goes to a tunnel problem, and of course you have Gorman like fill the hole with the gold. Then of course basically and by the way, the distraction for Jiko and Jugen to do is to have this thing where Zenigasa himself is so obsessed, and why he doesn't have the scene guarding the thing is because he wants to go after Lupin in his hideout before he acts. So he said he basically has where he doesn't succeed, he's going to resign from the police force. And the only reason I do this in this very episode, because it's the final episode of the series. That's the only reason why. Well, final episode of part 1, that is. So, by the way, all the guards, they're all knocked unconscious via a sleeping drug. And apparently also, for some reason, Zenigasa, his doesn't last very long, even though he ate all of his pretty quickly. Everybody else is pretty normally. He is quickly. And apparently he was knocked out very long. No, he was knocked out. But he was knocked out very long. And of course he sees Lupin stealing what was left of the gold. And then they drive away. And then of course they hide it inside of a landfill, which they later basically have where apparently Lupin can't run any place in Japan because they apparently follow his hideouts. Every one of them, including probably the old one they showed in the episode, apparently has a bunch of ply planes that fall apart and guns that explode. Yes. Why in the world he's using this hideout? Don't know, because it's never appeared again in the series. So they basically swim. The thing explodes. Of course, Zenagasa's police force just disappears. Zenigasa still chases after this, but they're all hiding in barrels containing bags of gold, and of course they ride off the sunset. Yeah, have the 5 leads right off the sunset in the final episode of the series. Yep. But in the case of these final episodes, this episode overall, interesting to say the least. I think the final episode is a good. I mean, it was so obvious based on the dialogue. Like, yeah, this is the end of this particular series. The series is going back 5 years later. Yes, my final thoughts on Lupin the Third Part 1. I'd say for this one, the first half of the series I thought was really good. I would say the middle portion of the series is where I think the series took a dip and probably cost them in the ratings. And my guess is people must not have been interested in watching the show afterwards because basically, as soon as you wrap that last little bit, like that 13-16 area, it seems as though my guess is the rating must have slipped. And like they have this little dark stuff in here. Basically, it's like sort of not exactly dark humor per se, just over the top comedy in this one, which is interesting to say the least. Though I do think one weakness of the show is they waited until about 4 or 5, at least by episode 6, before they finally give an actual crime. Like mostly they just do random things with these episodes, and I think that stealing jewels is normal for Lupin. One, he has to be intimidated to it by Fujiko, and it seems as though for these episodes we have it where Jugen, the guy who's there a lot of the time, he misses like 2 or 3 episodes of the whole series. Goran misses like 5 or 6 as a weekend regular. Fujiko misses surprisingly 2 episodes. Yeah, she misses 2, which is odd. Not really sure why she misses 2, but that's basically what it is. Oh, fun fact about the episodes. The episodes themselves, starting with episode number 7, were co-directed by A Production, which is basically co-directed by Hayao Mizuguchi. Now, you probably think, okay, who is this guy? Well, he works to a Ghibli now, and he's directed movies such as Kiki's Delivery Service, Castle in the Sky, Spirit of the Way. You want to list off more? More films he did in his career that people are familiar with. Let's see. There is Princess Monaco, of course, Howling's Moving Castle, Ponyo, The Wind Rises. The guy who directed any movies. The first movie he directed was a Lupin, the third movie, The Castle of Kaguya. He did Nagasaga, Valley of the Wind, which is something that he actually wrote himself. Was a manga he wrote. Yeah, he's a manga writer too. You thinking, really? He writes manga too? Yep, he is. I never read anything he wrote. The most recent he came out with was a series called Toparu Samurai. And by the way, the guy himself is 81, and he's one of the most well-respected men in the entire Japanese entertainment industry. He's that well-respected. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and fun fact about this movie, Spirit of the Way, which I have seen, it's an absolute really good movie to watch. It's a film that, here's something quite interesting. Kenny Omega is a big fan of this movie. Yes, Kenny Omega, as in the guy who just came back after having been on the shelf by a year, all these injuries he basically suffered. The film had a record of 19 straight years of being Japan's highest grossing anime film of all time until Demon Slayer broke the record. Yep, it did. Yep, but the guy had been directing it mostly since episode 7. But I do enjoy what the guy did with the series. If you're curious, though, was any episode he did not work on? Well, he worked on 7, 8. He did not work on 9. Excuse me, came back for 10. And he was there up until the final episode. He basically directed himself for these episodes. Of 23, he directed, 2 plus. I think he directed 16 out of 23 episodes. And if you're curious, though, did he direct the movie? Nope. That is Masuki Osama, who actually was the director for this series. He did pretty much from the first 6 episodes. He did uncredited directing for episodes 7 and 8. He also did 9. That was the official one he did. He did uncredited for episodes 10 through 15. He also did 17. It's surprising he didn't come back for an episode of the series. Yeah. But that much else I'll say about that. But in the case of basically what I don't like about the series, um, well, aside from the one episode had that slapping scene. Uh, if you want to think what are the good episodes, it's probably some stuff basically based on stuff in the manga. I would say probably the worst episode series in terms of story, not directing. For story, is the one with the counterfeiting thing, because this is confusing as all hell. Why is Lupin out the counterfeit money? Why in the world is the old lady who's a former queen of counterfeiting? Why does she want her nephew involved with this thing? It's like a lot of this stuff. This episode was never explained. That was by far, in my opinion, the worst episode of the whole series. The best episodes are the ones that were based on the manga. The final episode is still really good. One of the very few. It's interesting though for this one, who is where episode that we have loosely based on the manga. Now these are not full adaptations. Due to the fact that the manga is drastically different than he was in the manga. In the manga, Lupin had this thing where every time he sees a woman, he would basically rip their clothes off as soon as he runs up to them in private, and then he basically would find a way to have sex with them. And the women basically would do nothing about it at all. Yeah, Lupin was a rapist in the manga. Now, I don't mind his writing per se when it comes to dialogue. I just didn't like that particular portion. I had nothing problem with Monkey Punch's artwork. I'm glad the fact they dropped the aspect for the anime, because that was a real kind of dumb idea. Also, here's something quite interesting though about the character Michiko Mine. She's not the only one. Apparently, there were several other Michiko Mines of the whole series, and she's like the only one who's actually sticks around. They have bunches of random one-shot women pop up in the series. Yes, and here's something strange about this one. For decades, this is actually a series was never dubbed. Until Richard Epicard, the guy who actually does dub voice for Jigen, his dub company, yeah, he has one, decided to dub this series. Why the heck he decided to do this one, I don't know. If I get a chance for Richard Epicard, I will ask that question. Now, in case you're curious, though, this is the only series I have ever actually seen him do dub work for. The answer is no. Because he was also in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Yep, he was. I did see him also in Ghost in the Shell. He was also voiceover for characters in Digimon, Adventure 2, Tamers, and Frontier. Let's see. He did also do work for Hunter x Hunter, The Aztec War. I believe he was the voice for Turu's uncle. Her uncle who kept slapping her. Yeah. And apparently she had a problem because she got a very strong body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it's interesting though that his wife, who he married in 1982, they apparently owned a dub company together. Mm-hmm. As a whole, her name's Ellen Stern. Now, Rachel Epicard is like pushing 70. She is. It's not listed on the Wikipedia page for some reason. She is 74. Yes, 74 years old. And her awesome husband is. Let's see. It's for some reason on the Wikipedia page and listed there. He is 67. And she is 74. She's roughly 8 years older than he is. And she looks actually okay for a woman in her mid-70s. She looks okay for a woman her age. Yep. One thing I would ask, like one thing would be an interesting question basically for to ask Richard Epicard, like, what is the process of forming his own dub company? That would be an interesting question to ask him. He probably has a good conversation. He probably has to go history of how he formed his own dub company with his own wife. Yeah. And today he's still voicing Jugen. He's probably by far the most consistent actor to voice him. He's been voicing him since like '03. But generally put, he is the like current main dub actor for him. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I'm very much looking now. In case you're curious, though, am I gonna do part 2? Yes, in the future. Not right now. No, not right now. The reason is pure and simple, really. I don't have plans to do it. My next anime I'm going to do is going to be, well, if you're really curious what could be my next official anime to work on, it is going to be, of all things, The Great Jaw Will Not Be Defeated. But I'm not going to go there just yet. First, I'm going to go to a couple Tokusatsu series. Finish them up. It'll be finishing up Kamen Rider V3 and Flashman. After those two are finished up, then I will start up The Great Jaw Will Not Be Defeated. That'll be the next one to work on. As back to this one, not for a while. Yep. So until next video. Bye.